Minato Mirai, Harbor of the Future, a district built as a symbol of Japan's unstoppable rise, a place meant to showcase the cutting edge of innovation and progress. Once the world's great economic miracle, from the devastation of war, Japan rebuilt itself into a global superpower, a land of neon lights, bullet trains, and revolutionary technology. By the 1980s, the future seemed inevitable, but then the bubble burst. The economy stalled, and somehow, Minato Mirai, this once futuristic cityscape, became a frozen vision of a future that never quite arrived. So what really happened? And what does this place reveal about Japan today? Stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you might see Minato Mirai and Japan itself in a whole new light.
But there's no rise, no life. I'm just being by myself, okay?
Lots of food, lots of things to see. I haven't really taken a moment to stop other than to go to sleep.
What are you and Claire got planned for later this evening?
We might just wander the streets, see if there's, I don't know, like a bar or something.
Let me show you a really good place to go to. At the very heart of Minato Mirai stands Landmark Tower, ominous, ever-present, watching over the city. This tower hides a cold, hard truth within. Welcome to Minato Mirai, Yokohama's city of the future. Let's explore. Minato Mirai, a dazzling 21st century city that embodies Japan's drive for innovation while standing on the foundation of its rich history. So here we are in Queen Square Yokohama, going for a stroll. The name itself means Harbor of the Future, and one look at its futuristic skyline tells you why. But beneath the towering skyscrapers and glittering waterfront lies a story of reinvention, resilience, and the delicate balance between progress and preservation. This district wasn't always the high-tech metropolis we see today. Just a few decades ago, this land was part of Yokohama's old shipbuilding yards, where Japan's Industrial Revolution took root in the late 19th century.
That looks like an Australia Fair, like Gold Coast.
When Commodore Matthew Perry arrived in 1853, forcing Japan to open its borders to international trade, effectively ending the country's closed nation policy. Apparently they had COVID back then as well. Yokohama became the nation's first true gateway to the world. Foreign merchants, traders, and diplomats flooded in, bringing new ideas, technologies, and industries that would reshape the country forever. Is there anything you guys have in mind? Or?
No, we're just happy to chill and just see what.
Fast forward to the late 20th century. Japan was booming, and the government had an ambitious vision for the future. Minato Mirai was designed from scratch to symbolize Japan's cutting-edge technology and international outlook. Today, it stands as a beacon of innovation with landmarks like the Yokohama Landmark Tower, once Japan's tallest building, looming over the city like a silent guardian of progress. But with great development comes great challenges. Cities like Minato Mirai must navigate the tightrope between rapid urbanization and sustainability. How do you build for the future without erasing the past? How do you create economic growth without compromising the environment? These questions are more relevant than ever as cities worldwide grapple with similar dilemmas. Yet, Minato Mirai has managed to embrace both modernity and heritage. The famous Yokohama red brick warehouse, otherwise known as Akarenga, once a customs inspection center for foreign goods in the early 20th century, now thrives as a cultural hub with cafes, museums, and stunning waterfront views. The district is also home to the Cup Noodles Museum, with the story of Momofuku Ando's revolutionary instant ramen unfolds, a reminder that Japan's greatest innovations don't always come in skyscraper form. And if you are ever lucky enough to be at Minato Mirai during sunrise or sunset, it is a spectacular sight over the harbor. The energy here is infectious. Whether you are exploring Minato Mirai district for its year-round festivals, or wandering through the high-end shopping malls and tech-driven art exhibits, Minato Mirai isn't just a place of history and commerce. It's a symbol of Japan's past and future existing side by side. A history of resilience meets its unrelenting ambition. And here we are strolling along the waterfront. You'll find Cosmo World to the right, home to the iconic Cosmo clock, which was once the world's tallest Ferris wheel. Nearby also lays the historic sailing ship, the Nippon Maru, which now rests in a dry dock, a silent tribute to Japan's maritime past. World War II left Japan in ruins, its cities firebombed, its economy shattered, and its people struggling to survive. But in just a few decades, Japan transformed itself from a war-torn nation into an economic powerhouse, becoming a global leader in technology, manufacturing, and modernization. In the late 1940s to 1950s, under US occupation, Japan underwent drastic reforms. A demilitarization policy was enacted, where the military was dismantled and Japan adopted a pacifist constitution, basically meaning that the nation of Japan had to surrender unconditionally and there was to be no more investment towards military advancement or military operations. They also went through an economic democratization. Land reforms and labor rights improved economic conditions. As we mentioned in the earlier video, there was the dissolution of the Zaibatsu. Zaibatsu were the large conglomerates that basically ran and controlled the economy of Japan. The US occupation forces saw the Zaibatsu as symbols of Japan's militarism and consequently ordered their dissolution in 1947. And there was also the Korean War, which had an effect on Japanese manufacturing in terms of demand, And this also gave the Japanese economy an unexpected boost. This then led into rapid industrial growth, which was the next era during the 1950s and 1970s. So during the 1950s and the 1970s, Japan basically went through an era called the economic miracle, where they faced rapid industrial growth. The economy, thanks to a combination of government policies, innovation, and a strong work ethic, saw Japan's economy soar. And government-led industrial policy, once again, the Ministry of International Trade and Industry guided the industrial growth, directing funds and resources into key industries. There was a focus on heavy industries, so steel, shipbuilding, and automobiles became core sectors. Technological innovation, companies like Sony, Panasonic, and Toshiba. All these companies basically put a lot of money into research and development to produce the world-class electronics that we still use to this very day. Quality and efficiency became synonymous with Japan, with companies like Toyota, just-in-time manufacturing, and Kaizen. Kaizen in Japanese means continuous improvement. So you are to look back at your systems and constantly analyze and refine your system to continuously improve. These standards set by these Japanese companies at the time became the global benchmark. Education and work culture. Japan invested heavily in education, while lifetime employment and company loyalty fueled productivity. And let's look, it was a really different time back then. Nowadays, I don't think there's such thing as company loyalty. But moving on. So by this stage, we're in the 1960s, where Japan was producing world-class cars, electronics, and industrial goods. So much so that even the US felt threatened by Japan. And when they subcontracted, certain companies did business with Japanese companies, and rather than giving them the patents to redistribute their items, because the Japanese were so good at creating, how would you say, copies, or like they were so good at remaking the original, and sometimes even making it better than the original, that some of these US companies would create a second version of the original. Let's say, for example, guitars. So rather than giving the actual diagrams and drawings for the original guitar to scale, they would give a second version of that guitar, which was slightly different, just so that the US could continue, so that these US companies could continue to have the authentic original version of that guitar, making sure that the Japanese wouldn't create a better version of it. So this is where Japan was during the 1960s and the 1980s. It was really almost another golden era for Japan. The global hub of modernization, and really it was Japan showcasing to the world their ability. And 1964, the Olympics was held in Tokyo, another symbol of Japan's rebirth. This gave Japan a chance to showcase the new infrastructure, like the Shinkansen, which is the bullet train. And as we move on into the 1980s, Japan was an economic superpower. Companies like Sony, Honda, Toyota, and Nintendo dominated global markets. And often these companies would be often seen in pop culture. The Shinkansen became a symbol of Japanese engineering and efficiency. And Japan led the world in consumer electronics, robotics, and precision manufacturing. But with everything that goes up, somewhere it must come down. With every beginning, there is an end. With every good, there is bad. With all light, there is dark. And as Japan's economy soared, speculative investments in real estate and stock markets led to an economic bubble. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of this one, but during the 80s to the 90s, there was a period in Japan's economic history which is often referred to as the bubble period. And basically this is when the properties in Tokyo were astronomically high. So some even estimated that the Imperial Palace was worth more than the state of California. Japanese companies expanded aggressively overseas, acquiring businesses in the US and Europe. The stock market surged. This was also fueled by easy credit and speculation, so the banks were just lending money left, right, and center during this period. And as I said, with every beginning comes an end. And in the 1990s, the bubble bursts. So the 1990s, also sometimes referred to as the lost decade, was basically Japan's recession if we're talking modern history. The 1990s recession was triggered when the Japanese government tightened monetary policy. This led to the stock market and real estate crash. The economy stagnated, and even until today, 2025, Japan has never really regained the same growth of its earlier decades, and the economy has somewhat been in a limbo, in a state of stagnation ever since. The legacy of post-war Japan's rise. Despite the bubble bursting, Japan's post-war recovery remains one of the greatest economic turnarounds in history. The modern image of Japan, a tech-driven, futuristic society, was built on the foundations laid in the 1950s and the 1980s. Bullet trains, high-tech gadgets, anime, and robotics became symbols of Japan's global influence. Minato Mirai is a testament to Japan's post-war rise, a vision of the future, built at the height of an era when anything seemed possible. The skyline, the landmark tower, the sprawling promenades, all of it a symbol of ambition. A city district that once represented the cutting edge of Japan's modernization. And yet, I can't help but feel that there's something strangely frozen in time about this city. The buildings still stand, the lights still shine, but the future that was once imagined here never quite arrived. Just like Japan's economy, which surged forward only to stall in the decades after the bubble burst, Minato Mirai too seems trapped in a past vision of tomorrow. A dream of a future that never fully materialized. Maybe that's what makes this place feel so surreal. A monument to Japan's unstoppable rise, and at the same time, a quiet reminder that even the brightest futures can become echoes of a time now gone. And so the question lingers, is this still the future, or just a beautifully preserved memory of one?
Never done before.